Hello, and welcome to ELA Plus, your free guide to the English language arts. In today's video lesson, we're going to continue our study of the various poetic feet. If you're interested in this topic, please see our playlist, Introduction to Poetic Feet in Meter and English Verse. It's linked to down in the description. So far in this series, we've covered the iamb, the trochee, the anapest, and the dactyl. Today, we learn about the Amphibrach. Let's go. In this video lesson on the Amphibrach, first we'll define the term Amphibrach. After that, we'll talk briefly about the phonaesthetics of Amphibrachic verse and its usage in the English language. This will be followed by a reading of a poem by Edward Lear, so we can hear those phonaesthetics in action. Finally, as always, we'll conclude with some comprehension questions. So let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, the metrical foot we call the Amphibrach. Here we have three definitions of the term Amphibrach. First up, we have Timothy Steele in his book, All the Fun's in How You Say a Thing, telling us that an amphibrach is a trisyllabic foot whose sequence is unaccented, accented, unaccented. Next up is the Norton Anthology of Poetry's definition, which is a three-syllable foot consisting of an accented syllable between two unaccented syllables. Finally, we have Wikipedia, telling us that an amphibrach is a metrical foot used in Latin and Greek prosody. It consists of a long syllable between two short syllables. The word comes from the Greek amphibraxis, meaning short on both sides. From these definitions, we gather that an amphibrach is three syllables in length, and an amphibrach follows the syllabic stress pattern of unstressed syllable, stressed syllable, unstressed syllable. ELA Plus, therefore, defines the amphibrach as a three-syllable foot consisting of an unstressed syllable, a stressed syllable, and an unstressed syllable. If you want a visual representation to help you remember the metrical pattern of the amphibrach, I find that it helps to think about a normal distribution or a bell curve. Here you can see the normal distribution graphed. You can see that on the left tail, there's not much going on. We can say that this is the unstressed syllable. But then we get to the middle of the distribution, and that's where all the action is. This is the stressed syllable. And then on the right tail, there's not much going on again. This is the concluding unstressed syllable of the foot. The first thing to understand about amphibrachic verse is that, unlike the iamb, trochee, anapest, and dactyl, this is not a terribly popular poetic foot among English poets. In fact, the amphibrach is rarely, if ever, used as the overall meter of a poem. In other words, amphibrachic meter is almost never sustained throughout the majority of an English poem, unlike the other poetic feet we've covered so far in this series. Very often, the amphibrach will appear as a variation in anapestic verse. This does not mean, however, that the amphibrach lacks a unique phonaesthetic quality. The amphibrach is said to convey a distinct feeling, but any number of moods. That distinct feeling is one of choppiness or bounciness. This bounciness makes it ideal for humorous poetry and children's poetry. That's why the most popular type of amphibrachic verse is the limerick. To get a better understanding of the phonaesthetics of the amphibrach, let's read a limerick from Edward Lear. This poem is called There Was a Young Lady Whose Chin. It reads as follows. There was a young lady whose chin resembled the point of a pen. So she had it made sharp, and purchased a harp, and played several tunes with her chin. This poem follows the basic format of the limerick. It's a 5-line poem following the rhyme scheme AA-BBA, written in primarily anapestic and amphibrachic verse. Go ahead and pause the video and reread the poem to yourself. Can you hear the bouncy phonaesthetics of the meter? To give you a visual sense of the foot, here's the scansion of the poem with the stressed syllables in bold font. You can see here that the poem does not consist solely of amphibrachs. As we've said previously, rarely, if ever, will an English language poem be written entirely in amphibrachic meter. Most of the lines, however, are dominated by the amphibrach, and that's what gives this poem in particular, and the limerick in general, that bouncy phonaesthetic quality. You'll also note that in the one line where the amphibrach does not appear, line 3, the anapest takes its place. This, anapestic substitution, is also quite common in amphibrachic verse. In fact, as Timothy Steele notes, many poetry metrists believe that the amphibrach is, as far as English is concerned, a prosodic mirage, and that what some poets call amphibrachic rhythm is really a subspecies of anapestic rhythm. And that concludes our discussion of the amphibrach. In this video lesson, first we defined the term amphibrach. Then we talked about the phonaesthetics of the foot, and finished up with an analysis of Edward Lear's limerick, "There was a young lady whose chin." This should be enough for you to understand that an amphibrach is a 3-syllable foot consisting of an unstressed syllable, a stressed syllable, and an unstressed syllable. But just to make sure that you do in fact understand the material presented in this video lesson, we now turn to some comprehension questions. 1. What is an amphibrach? 2. What are the phonaesthetic qualities associated with amphibrachic verse? 3. In what poetic form do we typically find the amphibrach? And 4. What other poetic foot usually appears with the amphibrach? And that's our video lesson on the amphibrach. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. You can find other video lessons on poetic feet in our Introduction to Poetic Feet and Meter in English Verse playlist. ELA Plus is a free guide to English studies and the English language arts. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. Until our next lesson, keep reading, get obsessed, and take care of yourselves and others. Thank you.